You can be the ruler of the seven seas in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and play as Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman. And whether you want to play as a superhero, an anime character, or anything else, I come out with a D&D build every single week, so if you like that kind of stuff, make sure to hit subscribe, it helps the channel. And whether you have a water-based campaign or not, I'll make sure this build works. But we have to start with a race, and the perfect race for an Atlantean is a Triton. Tritons by default have a walking speed of 30 feet, but they always have a swimming speed equal to their walking speed. They have the feature amphibious, so they can breathe air and water. They have a feature called control air and water, where at first level you can cast fog cloud, at third level you can cast gust of wind, and then at fifth level you can cast the water walk spell. You also get some dark vision, so you can see in the dark depths of the ocean, as well as a feature called emissary of the sea, so you can communicate simple ideas to any beast, elemental, or monstrosity that has a swimming speed. It can understand your words, although you have no special ability to understand them. And then the final important feature that you get from being a Triton is Guardian of the Depths. This feature is about being adapted to the frigid, cold ocean depths, giving you resistance to cold damage. Then when it comes to a background, you are a king, so we're just going to choose the background, Noble. This gives us skill proficiencies in history and persuasion. Then as far as the starting stats, in the comics, Aquaman is pretty darn good at a lot of stuff. He's got good charisma when it comes to intimidation and ruling over his people, as well as solid intelligence and wisdom. But we're going to go with the Jason Momoa version, at least when it comes to stats, just because we only have so many points to go around. So by choosing the Jason Momoa version, I feel like we are able to dump our intelligence and our wisdom. So overall, we're going to take our strength, bump it up to 15, then take our dexterity, bring it up to 12, take our constitution, put 14 points into that, and then like I said, we're going to dump our intelligence and wisdom. Then we're going to take the remainder of our points and put them into charisma, bringing it to 14. Then thanks to the newer version of Triton, we can choose how we want to increase our ability scores thanks to our race. So we're going to increase one score by 2 points, which is going to be our dexterity, bringing it to 14, and then another score by 1 point, boosting up our strength to 16. Then when it comes to a starting class, I really wanted to have some sort of focus on his trident, while at the same time having some ability to control some sort of water-based creature that'll help you out. And I also had to keep in mind that some of Aquaman's powers actually come from his trident. So bringing in all of that, we're actually going to go with a warlock. By becoming a warlock, you get saving throws in wisdom and charisma, and you get 2 skills. So we're going to grab intimidation and nature. Also, when you start being a warlock, we get some spell casting right away, but we'll save all of that for the end of this build, and you get to choose a subclass for your warlock right away, also known as an otherworldly patron. And there's one that's perfect for the king of the seven seas, and that's a warlock of the fathomless. This gives you more water-based spells, but it also gives you some other water-based features, such as Gift of the Sea. So you gain a swimming speed of 40 feet and you can breathe underwater, which doesn't boost you quite as much because you're already a Triton, but it does boost that swimming speed by 10 feet. Additionally, when you choose this subclass, you get Tentacle of the Deep. So you can magically summon a spectral tentacle that strikes at your foes. As a bonus action, you create a 10-foot long tentacle. It can start any point within 60 feet of you. It lasts for 1 minute, and you can make a melee spell attack against any creature within 10 feet of the tentacle. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 cold damage and its speed is reduced by 10 feet. Almost like you're using the power of your trident to hit them with some frigidly cold water that you summon into existence. And when you hit 10th level in this class, that damage increases to 2d8. Every bonus action on your turn, you can move the tentacle 30 feet and repeat the attack. Then at 2nd level of Warlock, you get some Eldritch Invocations, which are special ways to enhance your overall Warlockiness. And the first invocation we're going to grab is Beast Speech. You already have the ability to express what you want to any animal with a swimming speed, but you can't really understand them yet. So to better understand the sea creatures in your oceans, you can grab the invocation Beast Speech. This allows you to cast Speak with Animals at will. Then we'll save our other invocation for just a moment, because at 3rd level, you get a Pact boon. And like I said, we need to focus on that trident. So we're going to take Pact of the Blade. This allows you to summon a magical weapon into existence, and you're automatically proficient with it. So we're going to summon that trident, which automatically does 1d6 piercing damage if you're wielding it with one hand, but if you wield it with 2 hands, it deals 1d8. You can also throw it for a ranged attack as well. Then we're going to go ahead and use that other Eldritch Invocation and make that trident a little better with improved Pact weapon. This allows you to summon different types of packed weapons, but that part doesn't matter as much as the fact that it also gives us a +1 to our trident. Also at 3rd level, your Warlock spellcasting upgrades to 2nd level. Then at 4th level of Warlock, you get an ability score improvement. And we want to focus more on your physical abilities than anything else, so let's put 2 points into strength. Then at 5th level of Warlock, your spellcasting upgrades to 3rd level, and you get 1 more Eldritch Invocation. So we're going to take Thirsting Blade. That allows you to attack twice as your action. Then at 6th level of Warlock, you get another feature from the Fathomless called Oceanic Soul, which is probably one of the most redundant abilities you can have as a trait because it gives you resistance to cold damage, which you already have, and when you're fully submerged, any creature that is also fully submerged can understand your speech, and you can understand theirs, which can be helpful in case you're dealing with non-Atlanteans. You can still communicate underwater. Additionally, at 6th level, you get Guardian Coil, so that tentacle that you get can defend you and others. So when a creature you can see takes damage within 10 feet of the tentacle, you can use your reaction to choose one of those creatures and reduce the damage it takes by 1d8. And if you take this subclass all the way to 10th level, you can reduce it by 2d8. If you don't want this to be played as a tentacle, you can think of it as controlling some more water with your magical trident to block some of the incoming damage. Then at 7th level of Warlock, your spell slots upgrade to 4th level and you get another Eldritch Invocation. So we're going to take Eldritch Smite. So now when you strike out with your trident, you can spend some of your Warlock spell slots to boost up that damage, dealing extra damage equal to 1d8 plus another 1d8 per level of spell slot that you used. And on top of that, the target is automatically knocked prone if it is huge or smaller. You can only use this once per turn, but if you use it on your first attack, knocking them prone, you then have advantage on your second attack, because all melee strikes against a prone target are at advantage. Then at 8th level of Warlock, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to go ahead and max out that strength. And then at 9th level of Warlock, your spell slots upgrade to 5th level, and you get 1 more Eldritch Invocation. So I'd actually probably take Fiendish Vigor. Aquaman is pretty darn resilient, and Fiendish Vigor allows you to cast False Life on yourself at will. You can only cast it as a 1st level spell, but it gives you an extra 1d4 plus 4 temporary hit point, meaning that you just always have this little buffer of health, because as of right now, we'd have to be relying on light armor. But if you're playing this level by level, there's a multi-class that I have coming up soon, and if you wanted to make sure you were a little more useful early on, you could probably do that multi-class starting at 2nd level and jump back and forth. But for the sake of ease in this video, we're going to keep powering forward in Warlock, because at 10th level of Warlock, you get Grasping Tentacles. So you can suddenly ask for help from a bunch of creatures all at once, or one massive kraken, or just summon a bunch of water to help fight your enemies. And just play it up as you casting Avard's Black Tentacles, because the feature Grasping Tentacles gives you the spell and you can cast it once without using a spell slot. And on top of that, whenever you cast the spell, your patron's magic bolsters you, granting you a number of temporary hit points equal to your Warlock level. And even better than that, if you take damage while you're concentrating on the spell, it doesn't break your concentration no matter what. Only you or the time limit of the spell can actually end it. Then at 11th level of Warlock, you get a Mystic Arcanum, which is a special 6th level spell that you can cast once per day. Then at 12th level of Warlock, you get another ability score improvement, and you get another invocation. As far as the ability score improvement, let's go ahead and throw 2 points into our Charisma, because that's going to help all of our spell casting and a lot of our Warlock features. Then as far as the invocation, we're going to take Life Drinker. Life Drinker allows you to add your Charisma modifier to any damage you deal with your packed weapon. So now your trident is automatically going to deal its basic trident damage. It gets a +1 from improved packed weapon. You get to add your strength modifier and your charisma modifier to every single attack. And if you want, you can also throw in an Eldritch Smite to boost it even further. And then instead of jumping into 13th level of Warlock, we're going to do a multi-class. And like I said, if you actually took this at 2nd level to mix it in early and then jumped right back over to Warlock, it would probably be way more beneficial, because we're going to be jumping over into Paladin. When you multi-class into Paladin, you get access to medium armor and shield. And that medium armor is going to be helpful because you want some sort of scale armor to really live up that Aquaman dream. It also gives you access to simple and martial weapons, so you could start using that trident one level earlier if you were to mix it in at second level. When you take your first level in Paladin, you get Divine Sense, so you can sense evil things around you, and you get Lay on Hands, allowing you to heal yourself or others for an amount equal to 5 times your Paladin level. That overall pool of healing can also cure one disease or neutralize one poison, and considering how many poison creatures there are in the ocean, that could be pretty helpful. You just have to use 5 of those hit points to do so. This overall pool of healing does replenish on a long rest. Then at second level of fighter, you get a fighting style, and there's 3 good options. If you're just wielding your trident with one hand, you could do dueling, which would give you +2 bonus to damage rolls. If you wanted to wield that trident with both hands, you could use great weapon fighting, so you can re-roll a 1 or a 2 on any damage die as long as you're wielding the weapon with 2 hands. But personally, I like the idea of sticking with that scale armor. It's very iconic, but it doesn't give you quite as much of an armor class. So I'm going to take the fighting style defense. That gives you a +1 bonus to your armor class. Then at second level of Paladin, you get some Paladin spellcasting, and unfortunately you only get first level spellcasting until you hit 5th level of Paladin, and the second level spell I would have used is Find Steed, and you just gotta talk to your DM about having a giant seahorse to ride, but I'm not gonna be taking that many levels in Paladin. Then the last thing you get at second level of Paladin is Divine Smite. So now you can spend spell slot to deal extra damage on top of everything you get from being a warlock. And you can use a warlock spell slot for a Divine Smite. So you can do a double smite. The Divine Smite deals an extra 2d8 radiant damage for a first level spell slot, plus an extra 1d8 for each spell slot above the first level, but it maxes out at 5d8. Then at third level of Paladin, you get Divine Health, making you immune to disease. And at third level, you get a Sacred Oath. And I'm very torn between 2 different oaths. The first one I was tempted to choose is Oath of Vengeance, because Aquaman is definitely very protective of his ocean, and he goes after anybody that damages it. So vengeance felt good, but you're also a king, so Oath of the Crown felt like it fit as well. Then I looked at the Channel Divinity options, and they were just too good to pass up, because when you choose to be an Oath of the Crown, you can use Channel Divinity for one of 2 options, and the one that caught my eye, simply for all the water-based stuff, is Turn the Tide. I know it's just a play on words, but it solidified my choice. Turn the Tide makes it so as a bonus action, you can bolster injured creatures with your Channel Divinity. Each creature of your choice that can hear you within 30 feet regains hit points equal to 1d6 plus your Charisma modifier, but it has to have no more than half of its hit points when you use this. The other thing you can use Channel Divinity for is Champion Challenge. So as a bonus action, you issue a challenge that compels other creatures to do battle with you. Each creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must make a Wisdom saving throw, and on a failed save, the creature can't willingly move more than 30 feet away from you. Then at 4th level of Paladin, you get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up our Charisma one more time. Then taking any more levels in Paladin feels like kind of a waste. I was tempted to jump over to Sorcerer, but the only thing that might fit is Storm Sorcery, and that's more about actual weather control instead of just the ocean, so that doesn't fit either. So instead, we're going to focus on your pure fighting prowess and go with a fighter. When you take your first level in fighter, you get another fighting style. So this time, it just depends on your personal preference, whether you want to go with dueling or great weapon fighting. Personally, I feel like a flat +2 bonus is a little better than re-rolling a 1 or a 2. So I'm going to take the fighting style dueling, giving us a +2 bonus to our damage. This also frees up our extra hand in case you want to wield a shield. Also at first level of fighter, you get Second Wind, allowing you to use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level, which you can use once per short or long rest. Then at second level of fighter, you get Action Surge. So you can take 1 additional action once per short or long rest, so you can use that to cast a spell or strike out with your trident 2 more times. Then at third level of fighter, you get to choose a martial archetype, otherwise known as a subclass, and while in the comics, Aquaman's pretty darn strategic, in certain versions, he's more of a just charge in and be the champion of his people. So I'm going to take the subclass Champion. This is actually going to be really helpful for our smiting, because stacking up the smites the way we have access to them can be especially powerful if you crit, and the subclass Champion gives you improved critical. So you can score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20 with a roll of that d20 dice, doubling your chances to crit. And if you stack up your Eldritch and Divine Smites, that's an insanely massive amount of damage. Then at 4th level fighter and last level of this overall build, you get one more ability score improvement. And we could focus on that charisma a little more, but I think we need some more health. You're very hardy, you're a straight up superhero, so we're going to take the feat tough, allowing us to boost our hit points by 2 points per level of this overall build. And an extra 40 health at this point is pretty darn massive. Now we have plenty of spells to choose from, so let's choose the important ones. And if you want the full spell list, feel free to check out my Patreon, where I have the character sheet for this build as well as all of my other ones. When it comes to some cantrips, I would just make sure to grab Booming Blade and Sword Burst. Booming Blade so you can strike really hard with that trident, and Sword Burst so you can spin it around like Jason Momoa managed to pull off and hit everyone around you. Then when it comes to first level spells, I would grab Command from the Paladin spell list, because remember, every sea creature can understand you. So if you mix that with the spell Command, you can command sea creatures to follow your will. Other great spells to look into are Heroism, which is another great way to boost up some temporary hit points, because you get temp HP at the beginning of each of your turns. You could also throw in another smite like Wrathful Smite or Thunderous Smite, or Shield of Faith if you feel like you don't have enough armor class. But when it comes to the Warlock spellcasting, which is where you're going to get most of your real power from, you have to remember that Warlock spells are always cast at the highest level that you have available. And once you hit a certain level in Warlock, you are just stuck with 5th level spell slots. So make them worth it. Another protective spell you can use, which is great if you happen to be a melee caster mix, is Armor of Agathis. It gives you 5 temporary hit points, and if a creature hits you with a melee attack while you still have some temp HP, that creature takes 5 cold damage. And every spell slot above the first level that this is cast at boosts the temp HP and cold damage by 5. So that's 25 temp HP and 25 cold damage. And then one of the spells I would grab from the Fathomless spell list is Thunder Wave, just pushing people out with water. Then I would go ahead and add on Spirit Shroud, which is a 3rd level spell. It makes it so any attack that you make deals an extra 1d8 damage, and that damage can be radiant, necrotic, or cold. And since it can be cold, that feels more like water damage, so I think that's pretty fitting. It also makes it so that creature can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn, and its speed is reduced by 10 feet. But if you cast this at a 5th level, which you're going to have to, being a warlock, that 1d8 gets upgraded to 2d8, which is just another boost to your overall melee attacking. Then I would also make sure to grab Hold Monster at 5th level for your commanding of sea creatures. The Fathomless spell list makes a point of granting you Cone of Cold, which is just a more water-based attack, and it also grants you Bigby's Hand, but very specifically in the subclass, it states that the Bigby's Hand is actually appearing as a giant tentacle, as if you're commanding a kraken to do your bidding. Then you do have a 6th level spell thanks to your Mystic Arcanum. So I would actually grab Mass Suggestion. This specifically states that you suggest a course of activity and magically influence up to 12 creatures of your choice that you can see within range, and they can hear and understand you. And targeting up to 12 creatures seems pretty fitting, and since you can communicate with sea creatures, that means you can have an underwater army of sea creatures just doing your bidding and helping you fight in battle. There's plenty of other spells I would probably add in, but I don't want this video getting any longer. So if you want the full spell list, feel free to check out my Patreon, and you can be an awesome patron like some of these folks, especially like my player character patrons, Johnny Dyer, Kevin Shirley, Zephyros, That Funny Man 57, Joshua Maynard, CGC 2014, Halfstorm, Elisa Martinez, Panda Milkshake, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Carcat Kitsune, Decker Joint, Z13, Viral Nerevar, Daniel Galvin, and the Dino 21. Then going above and beyond that are my Dungeon Master level patrons that I play D&D with, Shane Gilroy, Command ZX, Cybersiety, Talon Starkey, Demiurge, Braden Aldridge, Eric Wade, Salvador, and Devin Happy. Then going above and beyond anything I ever imagined is my god tier level patron, GameSteak. He helps me more than I ever expected, so a very special thank you to him. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to be the King of the Seven Seas, Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman, in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.